How has growing up between two rather different cultures, so Bulgaria and then the USA, how has that shaped your worldview?
It happened when I was 10 years old that we moved. And so when you're that young, you're figuring out so much about life, and you're not understanding fully why you're moving. But from that perspective too, you're so adapting to your environment. And so I think one of the biggest reasons, or one of the biggest takeaways or benefits, is because I didn't know English when I moved and I was 10 years old. And you become so in tune to body language. And
Mm,
when you basically have this skill so early on in your life, that has helped me so much to sometimes I don't even kind of listen to people, but I just see how they're reacting through their body language. And I didn't study this at all, but it's because of that, 10-year-old trying to understand when you're not understanding anything around you, the environment is new, uh, all these people are kind of coming at you. That's how it felt to me. That they're trying to. I knew they were trying to help in some way, but it was so confusing. And then that's what I relied on. And so how that translates now into being a solo traveler and going to all these different countries, and I'm just so much more in tune to their body language, and I don't
mm.
understand what they're saying most of the time. English is everywhere, and I use my Google Translate app, but just, kind of observing and having that skill from early on has really helped me.
Being able to understand body language, and it's the biggest proportion of how we receive communication. So I spoke to
Exactly.
this SWAT hostage negotiator previously on the show who taught me this lesson about how we receive communication, and it's called
Mhm.
the 738-55 rule.
Okay.
So 7% of what we receive is through the words we say,
Mhm.
38% is through the tone of voice that we say it, and then
Mhm.
55% is exactly what you're talking about, is body language. So
Mhm.
even if you don't understand the language, you can sort of read that body language. It's interesting that you say that.
Yeah, I think that was the first lesson, and in becoming this world global, uh, the portions of my identity that has helped me become the person that I am today. So
Mm,
7% is just what is the actual language. Wow, that's so low.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
if
I
you
believe it.
Yeah, I suppose if you think about it, the most compelling speakers is how they portray themselves, how they speak, with the tone, with their body language, and they could be waffling about nothing.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people would say that about Trump, right? They
Ugh.
say that
Oh, don't
he
get me
waff.
started there.
Yes, okay, not that side of it. We'll go for his communication. There's a lot of
Okay.
people that obviously like him, and I think it's the way maybe he communicates, even though some of the words he says aren't even necessary.
Mhm.
It's how he says it.
Yeah,
But
how
anyway,
he and he, they studied that he speaks in very short, simple sentences. You know,
mm,
so I'm not a political
yeah.
analyst or anything. I just kind of received the news, and I find a lot of things fascinating about that. Just because, like, okay, so that's what resonates with people nowadays. It's
Yeah.
just because there's so much chaos, and because constantly uh there's so much complexity everywhere. You kind of yearn. I think
Mm,
that's the key here, that we're yearning for simple, straightforward communication.
yeah.
And I think it's global. I think a lot of people are just where our minds are chaotic, the world is chaotic, and so we just want some simplicity and some peace.
And that's what your lifestyle sort of brings you. So you started this nomadic lifestyle, sort of solo
Mhm.
travel.
Yes.
Tell me how that began.
Okay. All right, I'm going to talk about myself. It started of years of loneliness. So I know this is the lonely chapter, so this is very, very fitting, because this is that was the beginning of what spawned me becoming just homeless. Technically, I'm
Mm,
voluntarily homeless, but not in a negative way. But so. It started, I was working first in New York City. Then I moved at the beginning of the pandemic to San Diego. And I would say over years, yeah, at least 2 years, I felt super disconnected from myself, from the world. I felt very stuck. I felt like life was passing me by. I was getting older, and that there's something about age and not hitting certain milestones that we feel we put pressure on ourselves about. And I'm getting emotional because I'm taking myself back into that time, and it was so long, and it like I just kept enduring, and I kept stifling so many of the dreams that I didn't allow myself permission to pursue.
Mm.
And so one day, we could say it's the revelation walk or the epiphany, but it's definitely something I was thinking about in the back of my head. I just wasn't allowing it to come to the surface. One day took a long walk in San Diego, which San Diego is the nicest city in the States. One of the nicest. I think it was actually voted one of the nicest cities for many years. And it's beautiful, a beautiful day. It's always generally sunny there. And I thought that was mocking, just like it's so beautiful. I live in such an amazing city. I have a great job. Everything on paper is just looking, you know, check, 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 checking all the boxes.
Mm.
And I took this long 6-hour walk around the different neighborhoods of San Diego, and I was crying. I was crying. I was like releasing, and I said, "What is going on? Why is this like? Why is there so much uh, emptiness?" That's that's all I felt. I just felt completely empty, and I decided to dig deep. And I asked myself some questions that I have been avoiding for a long time, and one of them being, what have I been putting off? What have I
Mm.
been stifling? What dream have I not been allowing myself to go after? And I knew that was travel, and I wanted to see so much of the world. And I had traveled prior to that with family and friends and previous relationships. But for some reason, I feel like there was so much to see, and I knew that everyone else was busy. Everyone else had their own lives and had taken their own paths. And I said, probably, what if I did this alone?
Mm.
What what would happen if I just set off and I bought one-way ticket and just started? And between that walk and actually buying the ticket was 9 months.
Right.
So that just goes to tell you how it was sort of like this agony, like, oh my gosh, like I was judging myself.
Yeah.
I'm too old to live a backpacker lifestyle. There's all of these sort of doubts that kept creeping up. And then I got to a point where, I'm just going to book it. I have to take that first action step. And that's what I tell people now. I think just taking that first step and knowing that there's so much fear, you're still going to have the fear, even when you book it. And when
Mhm.
you make that the fear is coming with you. I joke around about this, but that's one of the things that it was like my big suitcase, my backpack, and the fear. We're all going on this together.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so that's how it started. And I booked my for one-way ticket. I put my things in storage, so there's no apartment. There's no the just kind of I made it harder for myself to get back to that life that I had that was making me feel so disconnected and so unhappy. And I knew I had to make some drastic changes because it was years of feeling completely empty.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting that aspect of fear as well. The fact that you took sort of 9 months to sort of take the plunge, if you like, and so often in our minds we create the story and this future of what happens if we make that decision, and we start to go down, and quite often it's the worst outcome or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
we sort of put ourselves off making that decision. But like you
Hmm.
say, that fear is always going to be there. So by taking the first step, that is courage. And then
Hmm.
from then on, you're like, actually, no, I can do this because I've got
Yeah.
the evidence now behind me. And every
Hmm.
time you do it, you just build that evidence more and more.
Yes. The
Um,
confidence, the resilience that
hmm,
happens. And now it's been 2.5 years later.
yeah, awesome. And how many countries have you visited in that time?
So I lived, I say lived because I spent significant time there. Some of them I lived for 2 months. So 22,
22, yeah.
22 in the last 2.5 years. But I've, adding on to some of the countries that I visited beforehand. So now I'm up to 37.
Wow, excellent.
Which is it's great, but I think what I realized in the last year or so, and which is why I started to talk about my journey, and I my intention is to inspire others to solo travel. And it's not, there's a huge flex there about, oh, I've been to 37 countries and blah blah blah. Some other people would say, well, I've been to 43. I'm like, oh yeah, wonderful. But I think the important part here is, I've definitely slowed down on the countries that I visit, because now I prioritize making mini communities and spending a little bit longer in each country than just having like a check. Oh, I've been to this one. I
Yeah.
enjoy going to a new place, and it feels really nice. But I think from my perspective of now, it's just more about, I want to get to know the local culture, some people, maybe some locals, if I can sort of, and then figure out how that is shaping me too. And that takes a little bit of time. Like, you can't do it in two
Mm,
days.
yeah, actually immerse yourself a bit in the culture.
Correct.
I've written down a few questions, and these are the sort of ones that sort of came when I sort of looked at you, what you're about, sort of came straight to my mind. So I'm hoping they're sort of maybe questions that listeners might have had as well.
Okay.
So, firstly, how do you afford it?
Yeah. So I worked many years as a graphic designer, and so thankfully that's something you can do freelance and from anywhere in the world. So
Right.
from that perspective, I am lucky, and I do have some graphic design projects. Um, but I also think that people don't have to do it the way that I have, which is pretty extreme, to kind of put your stuff in storage and whatnot. And what I tell people is, if you find yourself in a transition period, maybe you're in between jobs, maybe you don't start that job, you know, the new job 2 weeks later after you finish your, maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to take a month. I'm going to take a month, or I'm going to take 2 months. And I know some people are able to do that from a savings perspective, and then some people are just like, maybe they get a bonus from their next job. That, so there
Mm,
are opportunities if you kind of see that you want to prioritize some time to yourself.
yeah.
And I think that's the first one. And so there are ways to make this, and there's also um, there's home about, I think. So what you can do is you can work in a new country. I was just at a speaking event where they are here in Bulgaria, and so what they're doing is they're rescuing dogs, and they always need volunteers. So they have the volunteers come work for them in helping the dog community, and then they give them free room and board. And
Oh,
so
okay.
there are a lot of different ways where you can, from a budget perspective, where you can say, okay, like maybe I work at a dog shelter. I love dogs, and that way I have free accommodation. And so
Yeah.
there's things like that. There's also like the ones where you can cat sit, or in different countries. I am super budget friendly, so I find I like, if please come. reach out on my website, on Instagram. I can give you all of the hacks that I know,
Yeah,
just
tips.
because all the tips, because there's so many out there, and I'm huge on doing research. And one of the lessons that I'll tell people, so maybe if you go to Bali, which I did a couple months ago, and I stayed in homestays. So I'm not sure if you've been to Bali yet, and the difference between homestays, the resorts, the Airbnbs, the hostels, they're just different types. But the homestays are family run, and they live there. The families live on the premises, and then they rent out a few rooms, and then they make you breakfast usually, and it's so much more affordable
Mm,
than the infinity pool resort,
yeah.
which it's nice. Yes, I'm not digging on the fancy hotels and etc. But if you want to do it for a longer term time frame, there's something there about not only saving money by going to homestays and being immersed in that culture and seeing the family and their kids are running around in the backyard, and you're able to see it's like, "Oh, okay, so this is also Bali." Bali is
Mm,
also resorts and very polished Instagrammy type stuff, but then there's also homestays where you see this family and they're cooking you traditional breakfast every morning, so
yeah.
for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a few different options for people to think about, and obviously they can reach out to you and get all of
Hmm.
your extra tips as well.
Yeah.
The next one, and I've seen you speak about this one before, so safety. It's probably the biggest thing that people would think about traveling alone, especially as a woman as well, whether that's right or wrong. Safety. How do you ensure safety?
I do a lot of research and I talk to a lot of people before I go somewhere. And now, because over the course of 2.5 years, I've really built a sort of travel community, and I know which people to reach out to for which country. And whenever I go to a new place, I asked a lot of questions about, oh, so where were you beforehand? And if we're meeting, let's say in like a homestay or a hostel and whatever, and then like explain to me. And so that gets recorded in my mind.
Mm,
And I said, okay, so I'm gonna have to be careful about this and think about this neighborhood. And then I read all the reviews, and my trick is really whenever I go to a place, I go immediately to the lowest reviews, to the bad ones first, and I read those first before I
yeah.
read the good ones, because the good ones are usually like, "Oh yeah, it's a great place. Come on down." But there was a point in Lisbon, there was a sketchy neighborhood that I almost booked this really nice Airbnb. This was 2 years ago or so, and then there was a review that said, the working ladies are coming out at night in this neighborhood. And during
Yeah.
the day is fine, but at night. So from that perspective, yes, research, talk to some people. There's so much, the people have already traveled so much. We're in such a global society. And then as a woman, I love to talk about how you walk and how you hold yourself in situations. So if you walk with intention, if you sort of fake it that you know where you're going or that you've been there before, and you have your body language, coming back to body
Mm,
language again. But in this case, it's to protect you. And so when you kind of walk through streets that you've never been, don't walk like a victim. And what I mean by that is just like, don't make yourself feel small. Don't be looking around kind of like with fear in your eyes. It just so much. Don't make yourself a target. And so I try to just definitely put my shoulders back, walk with intention, feel like I know where I'm going, even though most of the time I don't. I really don't. And you'll see me walk with intention coming back around the corner several times, but it's something about that where it deters. I think I truly believe it deters people to see you as a victim
mm,
and to see you as somebody that they would want to kind of take advantage of or attack. And I've said this in a previous podcast, but I sat next to this guy on the flight, And he's just like, "Do you do Krav Maga?" And I was like, "No, no, no." He's like, "'Cause you walk around like you can beat up somebody." I'm like, "That's"
That's what I want. Whether I can or not, that's what I want.
exactly. I was
Yeah,
like, "I didn't realize I was doing it at airports too, but I guess I just do it naturally now everywhere. Even,
yeah.
airports are safe,
It's
but I
just
think,
become how you walk now.
yeah, how I walk, how you kind of like position, and, it's very important, I think, as a woman
Yeah.
especially.
Mm.
And for men too, you wouldn't want, I was on a different podcast, and you wouldn't want the guy just to say, "Hey, did we lock the door?" Just like screaming, making himself vulnerable to say like, "Oh my God, did we forget to lock the door to the hotel room?" And that's kind of say like, just rob me, please.
Mm.
So certain, just it all just makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
being respectful of the new environment, not giving off this energy of victim and fear and whatnot. So
Yeah. Researching ahead of time's sensible as well, isn't it? Like knowing the neighborhoods.
exactly.
If there are areas which are more dangerous, knowing which ones to avoid. If there's any gang related stuff as well, territories and stuff like that. So as much as you can find out before you go, I suppose, is better. Um, do you have a favorite place that you've been to?
I have a little bit of a bias right now just because I recently went. Northern Thailand is
Okay.
uh, like Chiang Mai. I don't know what happened, but that city just stole my heart.
Is
And
it?
yeah,
Is there anything in particular? Any reason
yeah,
why?
yeah. So I love the food. Start there because so important. I love Thai food in general, and like northern Thai food is super delicious. And so then I also think that compared to southern Thailand, where it's very touristy and you're not really understanding the culture very much, in the north it's still very much preserved. There's the level of the monks walking around, the Buddhist monks.
Mm,
It's just such a different from the part that like us growing up in Europe and the like Western societies, that I just thought that was so cool. Everyone was so respectful. From a female perspective, there's something about when men don't stare at you or glare at you is really refreshing.
mm,
And you don't feel this sort of you're a piece of meat, um, type of feeling that sometimes in other countries
yeah.
you can feel. So the level of respect that they have for women, the food, the sort of like traditional religious, like the Buddhist monks kind of walking around in that
Mm,
part of northern Thailand. Um, it felt very much safe and at peace, and I felt like I could exhale somehow. Like I
yeah.
was like, wow, this is really it, and it's enough touristy where people understand English, so you can get around, but at the same time it feels authentic to their
Mm,
culture.
yeah. Last question of these little sort of what might be on the listeners' minds. And we spoke about this one just before we started recording. So, what if you're in a relationship
Mhm.
and you want to travel, or maybe your partner doesn't? How do
Mhm.
you go around that?
So, funny enough, I was in a relationship last year, and so I ended up sort of influencing that, like I want to go here and I want to do this, and so I did, and then he met me where he could. So there's a part that don't stifle your own dreams. And if there's something that you have always want a country or a place that you've always wanted to go to prior to, let's say, meeting this new person, and definitely go for that. And if they want to meet you there, that's great. Be open to that. So maybe the way I did it was just like I spent 1 week by myself, and then 1 week when he came over, and
Mm,
then the next place was just like 2 weeks by myself and 1 week when he came over. So you there's a you can do like a combination of that, or you trust your partner to say, this is something that you've always wanted to do. I have no desire to go to that place, but do it for you. And
Yeah.
that's the whole point of it, is to spend time with yourself and not go for a reason of, I'm out there gonna cheat on you, obviously.
Mm.
But if you explain to your partner and say, this is always something that has been on the back of my mind, that I wanted to visit this place, and I'd like to do it alone for the first week or in general. And I think it's going to be really fulfilling for my soul.
Mm.
And I think as a partner, most people would understand.
Yeah. Yeah. It comes down to communication, doesn't it? I suppose, again, that
Hmm.
communication and openness with a partner.
Yeah. And it's a play. I mean, they'll be back.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think that's a good segue into, if that person wants to spend some time with them, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I see that as a very good thing, that they are comfortable to spend time alone, to sit with their thoughts, and then they might come back with like a lot more at peace and a lot more of, doing that self therapy by traveling to that one place. And
Mm.
so that's the other benefit, if we can transition into that, uh, that I discovered. So transforming that loneliness that I felt before
Yeah.
leaving and transforming it into solitude. I never knew the difference. I felt they were the same thing, that there were synonyms, and they're really not. And it's so much more empowering, and there was so much growth there when I had this opportunity, or created this opportunity for myself, to spend time s- by myself, solo traveling,
Mm.
and figuring out so many aspects of, okay, I'm a lot more resilient than I thought I was. I'm a lot more courageous. I'm a lot more resourceful in figuring out. You become a problem solver when you solo travel for as long as I have.
Yeah. I bet.
You're gonna you have to maneuver, you have to adapt, and that makes such a big growth as a person, that I didn't realize. And that time that I allocated to spending for myself, by myself, with myself, it just, I can't stress enough that it's such it's a gift. And so solitude being that empowering time, that deliberate deliberate time with yourself, that you
Mm.
are giving yourself permission to spend, versus loneliness is like constantly lacking and empty, and it just kind of the negative portion of what you're feeling. And so I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't realize that this was gonna transform this way. This benefit has been huge. It's changed my life.
Yeah. I suppose it's the mindset as well behind it as well. Like, saw this quote just pop up the other day, and I wrote it down because it sort of relates to what we are going to be talking about. So it's by John Graves, and it's: a crowded world thinks that aloneness is always loneliness, and that to
Mhm,
seek it is perversion. And it's that idea, like aloneness or solitude in your case is a similar thing. And
mhm.
a lot of the time we think they're the same thing, but I'm sure you have, and I'm sure people listening have, they've come across people who feel very lonely, even though they're surrounded by friends, family, and there's big city loneliness, which is apparently a thing now. And it's like, in such a busy environment, you can actually be very lonely in
Yep.
yourself, in your mind. But to take yourself away from it and to be alone is not the same thing.
Mhm.
And that's where
Exactly.
you sort of sit with your thoughts, work out your beliefs, who you are as a person, work on your confidence, obviously going to places where you don't know anyone, having to go up and ask someone for help. You think
Mhm.
most people couldn't do that in their own country, like speaking the same language. It's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. I'll work it out. And they'd rather not ask and take half an hour longer to work it out than to just go and
Mhm.
ask someone, say, look, I'm a bit lost. Can you help me?
Yeah. And that's why I say you can start smaller. You don't have to rush off into a different continent or a different country, and you can start going by yourself. Maybe have a lunch.
Mm,
Maybe it's that intentional time that you are putting the phone down, trying to disconnect from this chaotic world and reconnect with yourself.
mm.
And I think that's so hard to do. I think a lot of people are, when I talk about it, they're just like, Svety, what? It's like where do you even begin? Because so many people are just they're just they're so used to constantly either being distracted by their phones, being distracted by work, being distracted by whatever drama their relationship is in, or a friendship drama. There's so many ways that we distract ourselves,
Yeah.
and to step and to take that opportunity. And I see that as I love when you said mind shift, because it is a mind shift, and to take that opportunity to take some time for yourself, even within the city you live in. You don't even have to travel very far, or maybe you take a day trip to the neighboring city just to kind of get away a little bit. And
Yeah.
that discovery of yourself, figuring out, some people don't even know their values. I didn't.
Mm,
I'm like, what is even important to me? Thought it was like every American. I thought it was like money, like making money was the most, important thing. And then through the solo travel, it's like, you know what? I just need enough money to survive and to continue this, to sustain myself. And
yeah.
then that was a shift too. And there's so many shifts that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding your values is a massive, massive thing to start with. Not easy to do, but definitely important.
Yeah.
Um, how has your time alone helped you understand yourself better as a person?
Uh, the question there is that even allowing myself to have that time alone was the first step. And I said, okay,
Mm,
I'm going to allow, I'm going to give myself permission to not think about other people. I'm going to be selfish. I put that in quotation marks because it's a negative connotation for the word selfish in this case, but it's and I battled with that initially. The first year or the first 6 months or so, I I had to I met some people. I was in Washington D.C. actually, and I met some people, and I told them I feel so selfish that I'm living this life, and if there's some parts that feel really great, there's some parts that you don't eliminate loneliness by solo traveling. That's a lot of people would say like that's actually you become lonely, but lonely at times, because I hadn't yet discovered kind of how to be with my own company. And so I felt selfish. I felt like, "Oh, I'm letting people down by not communicating with them as often as I did before." There was all these sort of pressures that I was putting on myself until I learned and until I gave myself permission to spend time with myself.
mm,
And I said, okay. And then once I did, I said, oh, wow. Like, I'm so glad that I have now uh, reached deep inside to, figure out my values, figure out my dreams, my hopes. And then from that came the realization that I want to give back and I want to talk about my journey and I want to inspire people. And it really came from that time alone that I said,
mm,
okay, I feel like this I'm in a good place, and I wish more people could understand the transformations that they could do, and what can I do to help them realize that maybe solo travel could be the answer to some of other people who are feeling lonely the way I was and who tried everything else.
Yeah.
to fix the loneliness. So I said, okay, maybe this is something. And that realization, that mission now that I have to spread the message, to be a sort of solo travel advocate, uh, then that came from spending that time alone.
Mm. It's interesting that you start with that almost before you started your travels, because that's such a massive part of it, and it would be for most people. And like you said earlier at the very start, it took you 9 months to just think about it. So it wasn't a overnight thing. It wasn't like you were already traveling loads and you thought, no, this time I'm just going alone. It was actually
Hmm.
a very long internal battle.
Hmm.
Mm.
I think for most people, because it's a big shift, a big trend, a shift from a traditional life. This is not a traditional life. I don't know. And you know, a lot of people, they think of solo travelers as maybe backpackers in their early 20s, and they, got the world ahead of them. And I said, okay, well, I'm almost 40. How is that doesn't fit? Maybe, yeah. So there are these views about where we should be in life, or at what age we have to hit these milestones at, or and now I proudly say I was very lost, and I'm still lost in certain things. It's a work in progress,
Mm.
but that you don't have everything together by the age of 30 or
Yeah.
35 or even 40. But the alignment that I'm after now is so much more important, and it's sort of, now it's like I'm no longer going to push a traditional life on myself.
Mm.
I'm looking to stay aligned with the values, with my goals, and my dreams. So the just staying aligned.
Yeah, that's really important. And I assume I already know the answer considering what you're saying, but sort of looking forward, do you have any sort of thoughts about the future? Will you sort of aim to settle down in one place eventually, or is it just sort of day by day, if you like?
I I think that the slowing down part is has helped. I know I will always travel. I know
Mm.
I will always do some sort of trips. Maybe I have developed like a more home, not a traditional home base, but something that I return back to more often, but it's not really set in stone. All I know is just I want to keep being aligned with who I am and how I want to live life, and I don't necessarily think that it has to be how I lived before,
Mm.
and it continuously changes of how I'm living now. So I wish I could say to people that like, yes, I'm gonna settle in one place.
Yeah,
It might happen. Who knows?
yeah,
But I know that travel is always going to be there, and I know I will constantly um, not put that the fear that I wouldn't say I have overcome, but like I won't let that fear interrupt my life anymore.
yeah. When you look back at sort of your travels and the time that you've been doing it, are there any pivotal moments or experiences that have really changed your sort of perspective on life?
Yes, yes, in different ways. So there's one moment I was 6 months into traveling. I think on my eighth country. Uh, it was in Finland.
Yeah.
Finland is amazing, by the way. If you haven't been, I shout out to all the Finns. And I went into a candle shop, and it was a handmade candle shop. I feel like the lady that was behind the desk was actually the one making the candles. And I realized that that candle, uh, I could bring it back to the Airbnb, but I didn't have a home to bring it back to. So I
Mm.
didn't have a home, but like for the traditional sense of home.
Yeah.
And of course I start crying. Like there's a lot of stories of me crying, by the way. I've realized. But it's my level of sort of coming to realizations, releasing that emotion. And I start crying, and the poor lady in the store, and just, you know, what, ma'am, are you okay? I guess I'm fine. I just don't have a home. Uh, and uh and I was there with a new friend, and she's like, "It's okay, we can bring the candle to the Airbnb." You know, she was trying to make it better, and that's when I realized the idea of home, that I had to, that traditional idea that it has to be a certain place, and it has to be uh you know, in one particular location, and all this, and I said, "Okay, maybe it doesn't." And now uh the idea of home has shifted. That was
Mm.
like a light bulb in my mind, and I've decided to make little homes everywhere I go. And if I want to buy a candle for the Airbnb, I'm buying a candle.
Yeah, do it.
But that was one instance of a mind shift, a transformation about what is really the definition of home to us.
Mm.
And then, of course, there are the cliches: is home where you are, you know, all of those kind of like American things. And it's, yes, there's a part of that, but you know, home is also how secure you feel inside, how you, no matter what place you're in. And yes, there are comforts, and the traditional type of home, like the comfort of the bed that you've slept in for the last 2, 3, 5, whatever years.
Mm.
Yes, there are comforts there, but me pushing pushing myself outside that, those comforts, outside my comfort zone, has brought me more at peace and more at home within myself.
And you've spoken about resilience a bit. You mentioned that in one of the parts you spoke about. So, how is resilience important in sort of your lifestyle, and how do you practice that?
So you start to doubt. Yeah, the doubts don't go away. You start to doubt, like, well, maybe this isn't like the best uh lifestyle to do. My body got tired after a while, but then that happened because I was moving a bit too much, and I was hitting a lot of countries in a short time frame. I didn't know this. It's kind of like a trial and error that happened, especially the first 18 months. And then the opinion of others has been something that I have to work on, kind of the continuously, to keep at bay. And so
Mm.
the resilience part comes into like, okay, be true to yourself. You're going to have a lot of people's opinions. Be resilient towards your own goals, like, and continue with your, what feels aligned and good to you. There's so many opinions about the way I live my life from
Yeah.
strangers, from family members. You know, people, they come from a good place most of the time about, we're worried, like, you're gonna go to this country by yourself, or you know, insert country name. Uh, and so being sort of like resilient about, let me live my life. um you know, I'm going to let you guys speak your opinions, and a lot of the times their opinions comes from fears that they have,
Mm.
and they're sort of projecting their own fears onto you. And that's what I've realized. And there's been some people recently that I've met that they've had really strong opinions. I could never do what you do. And it's a bit like, okay, well, um thanks for sharing. I could never do what you do.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you do, I don't know. But it's sort of like the resilience portion is like being continuously to stay true with my goals and my sort of non-traditional crazy life, I guess. Which
Yeah.
it's not even that crazy. It's
Yeah. I suppose, do you have,
to myself.
how do you overcome that? Do you have people on the other side who say things like, Oh, I wish I could do like what you do as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're and those people, we I work together with them, and we come up with ideas. I met a girl in Thailand on the beaches of Krabi, and this is the best example. Is she came up, she said, you know, I'd like to do what you do. And I said, let's reframe it. What's holding you back? What is it, like finances? Like, how can you save some money? The way I did it is putting my stuff in storage so I'm not paying for an apartment, an expensive San Diego apartment.
Mm,
And so if it's let's evaluate what's holding you back. And so, and if they're really serious, and this makes me really proud, and they kind of follow through. For the other ones, that might take some longer time, and they're not yet ready with the more practical questions. They're just kind of like, oh yeah, I really want to do what you do, and then they kind of move on.
yeah,
That's they don't really mean it, but I take that as a compliment. It's really nice. So
yeah, yeah. So for anyone listening who has sort of listened to our conversation and has sort of got an itch now that they want to sort of look at, what are
mhm.
some practical takeaways that they can start to do and put in place that would help them go solo traveling if they wanted to?
Yeah. So first, maybe start small. Do like a day trip and see how you like that. Go to the next town over. Uh, the other, and let's say if you have already done that and you're now ready to move on to a different country, I would definitely recommend still joining with like sort of wine tastings or going on walking tours, or
Mm.
just because to throw yourself in and just be by yourself 24/7, I feel like it's like cold turkey. It's going to be a shock to the system. Like work your way up to that and still do social activities. And there's so many in each of these cities. And while you're discovering the history of a specific city, that a new one, um, and you're going to make some other friends in the process. And then once you get comfortable with that, then maybe you do like a whole month somewhere by yourself. Then you start to to take those moments by yourself and whatnot. So just kind of like build yourself up. That
Yeah,
doesn't. I'd say those that would be a practical thing. Um, Look to uh, do some research, talk to me
yeah,
if you have questions, especially if it's a country I've been to. I'm happy to just kind of dump all the knowledge onto this person, whoever they are. Please reach out. And then, yeah, and I think the best one is if you're afraid, take it with you. Don't wait for that fear to subside. It's not going to subside. I can tell you
mm,
right now. It's always going to be there. But when you take it with you, it's going to start shrinking, and you're going to be growing in a different way. And that fear is just going to get smaller and smaller. But initially, if just don't wait around.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, take it baby steps. Start small. Start locally, day trips, etc. Before,
Hmm.
and then weeks, months. Um, and yeah, that fear thing as well. That comes down to like sort of comfort zone. So
Yep.
if you're in your comfort zone, stepping outside of that, whilst it's scary, it's actually a growth opportunity. And
Correct.
once you're outside of it, you sit in that discomfort for a time, and that area that you're in becomes part of your comfort zone now because you're comfortable there. You've done it for long
Hmm.
enough. And then you
Hmm.
just continuously do that and you can just grow your comfort zone.
Hmm.
And that's repeatable for whatever scenario you're in, whether it's going for promotion and you don't feel ready yet, or in your mind you're not ready yet, but you actually are. You step outside, feel discomfort, get comfortable, whatever that is.
Yeah, I love that you just, are able to take it in different real life scenarios, the
Mm,
same lessons.
yeah.
It's the best. And yeah.
It's important to, because obviously like traveling solo is something not everyone will do.
Mhm.
Like for me, my example that I always think of is when I started the podcast and taking that step to do it. And sort of, I did similar to you before traveling. I took 6 months overthinking it, over like worrying about every little detail before I actually just thought, well, if I record one, I've then got to just stick to a schedule and do it, and so on.
Mhm.
It's been, and now I'm here. But for everyone to relate to, yeah, trying to make it into something like work that everyone sort of can relate to and do. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, it takes us a long time, and then once we start that first step, oh my goodness, there's
mm,
so many podcasts and books out there just to like get to just take the first step. And I recently read a book, and it's kind of going from 0 to 1, and then 1 to 10 is like another big jump, and then you just after 10, like it's become a habit and it's become
yeah,
something different. And um, yeah, and also from if you are not feeling like very confident, I can tell you that I thought I would only be doing this for 3 months,
mm.
and it's been 2.5 years. So I had very low standards for myself, and underestimating yourself also part of the journey. That's
Mm,
that's what happened for me. I completely underestimated myself, and I said, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do this for longer than 3 months. And
mm.
here we are. And I'm sure you had some of those thoughts too, those, when you were starting off, to say like, maybe I'll make it to 10 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to start small with your goals, right? And for you,
Yeah.
like 3 months. For me, get to episode number 5, whatever it is, and then it's only going to go from there. But yeah, if I'd gone out and said, well, my goal is to get to 1,000 episodes, it's like, well, that's going to take you years. So
Yeah.
yeah, you got to start somewhere, find out if it's actually working, if it's any good for you, and yeah, go from there.
Yes. I do want to say though, as a like traveling, it's not just roses, and it's not as the benefits are enormous. I want to highlight, but there's still some stresses there with flights delayed, and I think from that perspective, the resourcefulness comes in now. And I have the story. Oh, sorry if I hit that mic. I have the story from Vietnam just now. I didn't make it to Vietnam, and I tried to make it to Vietnam. Or I wanted to, but there's that pivoting that we also have to do in life. And so what
Mm,
solo travel has taught me is to be more adaptive, to be flexible, and to sometimes follow your instincts when things aren't going right. Maybe you shouldn't be pushing them to keep trying to make it happen. And so with Vietnam started with, I went from Thailand, or tried to go from Thailand to Vietnam, and forgot to get a visa. I mean, a seasoned traveler,
mm.
and I was so spoiled because I didn't need like with an American passport, you don't need a visa to Bali, you don't need a visa for Thailand, you don't need a visa for Singapore, but for Vietnam you do. Oh my goodness. So I show up, and the lady that was checking me in, she's like, that's great that you have a ticket, but you don't have a visa. So I had to postpone the flight, and then I postponed, got a visa, and then I had to do a layover in Bangkok. Flight was delayed. I missed my connecting flight, so I had to stay in Bangkok. I said, all of these signs, I'm just not meant to go to Vietnam right now. And it just kept shrinking my time there. And I said I didn't want to just go there for 2 days. That's not doing a service to discovering that country, or how I like to travel. And so I just stayed in Bangkok, and I said, Vietnam, next time.
Yeah, yeah,
and the
100%.
and I think that's also another life lesson in general. Like sometimes things are not gonna work out. They're
Yeah.
just they're not. And how we handle, like, yes, I was a little disappointed, and I lost some money in these flights that I couldn't get refunded. Thankfully, my accommodation was free cancellation, which is also something that I constantly do. I always get free cancellation for
Mm,
accommodations because the plans, things change really fast. And so I'm gonna make it to Vietnam at some point,
yeah.
just not that time.
It's a great lesson in being adaptive, though. Like
Mhm.
that. um, yeah, that life happens, doesn't it? In all
Yeah.
walks of life, whatever the scenario is, life happens. So you've got to be able to adapt. And if you're so fixated on this is the plan, this is the itinerary, this is the schedule, and then something like that happens, it's like, well, it's not happening. So
Yep.
yeah.
And
And
I'm
again,
okay. Yeah, and you can let it go. It's okay to let it go.
mm,
It wasn't that time, or maybe it wasn't that job that you wanted so much, or it didn't work out with this person, and it's okay. Like, just giving ourselves to permission to let it go is probably another huge lesson
yeah.
that was hard for me. We try to so, control all aspects of our lives, and this the lifestyle that I lead now is very much an exercise in not controlling it that much,
Mm,
or trying not to.
yeah. I think it's great. Bringing it into a close, something I like to do at the end of an episode is leave a question for the listener. So it's so the listener can go away and maybe start a conversation around what they've been listening to or something non-related. It's up to you. But the question to go away for them to start a conversation with, what would that question be?
I would say, what dream have you been stifling?
Mm, nice. Tsvety, thank you so much for coming on. It's
Thank you,
been amazing.
Sam. This was so great, so fun. I loved it.
It's been great.
And
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna,
Go on.
I'm gonna get you to solo travel.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be good to go and do a few trips, and I do travel a bit, but yeah, I need to travel more. So
Even just a weekend, just hop on over. There's
absolutely,
so many, like, UK is so well connected.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
I should really
thank
utilize
you.
it.
Yeah.
If people want to find what you're doing online and reach out, ask any questions, where can they do that?
They can find me on Instagram. Tsvety Roo is my, and I'm sure you're probably going to have it in the links, just so I don't have to
Yeah,
give it letter by letter, because it's complicated spelling. But also on my website, you can sign up for newsletter. You can sign up for one-on-one sessions with me. The taking that first step is the hardest part. So I just wish more people would just reach out to me so we can uh, get you over that hurdle.
yeah,
That's the first step. So I'm happy to do that. So please, on my website, on Instagram, and let's inspire. My new mission is just 1 million people. 1 million
awesome.
people, solo travelers. Let's do it.
Yeah, make it happen.
Yeah.
To the listener, thank you so much for listening. And just a moment of your time. If you did enjoy it and you think someone would be interested in solo traveling or just learning some of these lessons, please do share it with someone that you think would find some value from it. If you haven't already, please do follow or rate the show where you're listening, as it really helps the show get shown to more people and get them involved in the conversation as well. Lastly, from me, thank you for listening and stay curious.